this is Day-to-Day Dev, where basically Steve and I are going to be going over some of the daily game designer type stuff. Because most people think that what a game designer does is they'll come up with an idea like making snakes and ladders set in the 19th century and be more like 4D chess and then print money for the rest of their lives. But it's not like that at all. And there's actually a lot that goes into some of the regular stuff that we do on the day-to-day. So I've brought in Steve, who is also full-time game dev. And we're going to be just kind of chatting about those kind of things that we do on the day-to-day, some of the hats that we wear, and answering some questions from people as they show up. But do you want to give us a quick rundown as to how you got to full-time?
Well, I'm not really a full-time game designer. That's sorry. I guess I do it a bit more than a hobby, but less than a full career.
Okay.
I also have another business that I do as well. But I try to run it as professionally as possible.
Yeah. Well, I think part of the side hustle and the side hustle accompanying the main part is one of the pitfalls that we do have in the industry, where you really do need multiple revenue streams to be able to say that you're doing this full time.
Yeah. Whether that's whether you're working in a game company or whether you've got a day job, or like a lot of tabletop designers that I used to know were independently wealthy. They just inherited money or had rich friends or a rich spouse. That's always the classic one.
The dream. I'll take any of the above, please.
Yes. So there are lots of another income stream is important. And because it is even unless you there's a couple of people who manage to get jobs at a studio, but not really in Australia, most likely in the US.
Yeah. All the game dev studios in Australia are video game, and there's 3, 4 max.
Yeah, the tabletop games really just don't, except for a couple of exceptions. They certainly not in Australia. They don't sell enough numbers to employ more than 1 or 2 people. So mostly what we have is a cottage industry, in the sense that the same people who do all the designing are also, as you said, wear all these different hats. We design the game, we develop the game, we publish the game, we market the game, we distribute the game. And so you've got to figure out your percentage, basically, how much of all of that stuff am I willing to do so that I do get to design games. And some people, for example, they just want to give their game to a publisher, because then they get to do more design and have to do less than that. But not every game is going to want to be picked up by a publisher or be a good fit or something like that. So there's options. I wanted to publish my own RPG, and that's something you can't really pitch to any company, because nobody company really wants to publish an RPG that isn't their in-house RPG. So
or their flagship product. Exactly.
Yeah. If you want to publish RPGs, you go and work for Pathfinder or D&D, basically, if you want to do it as a job. So Kickstarter and running your own company and being your own publisher is pretty much the only way to get an RPG out.
It's kind of the standard for both TTRPG and board games. Even at the highest financial income level of the industry, the average customer is still expecting to get the opportunity to get something early on Kickstarter, maybe. Because a lot of these, especially heavier hobby games, don't show up in retail. In Australia, don't ever show up. And so it's interesting where you really have to be clued into this very specific market, but gives us an advantage as creators where we can release it directly to that market, where it has the financial advantage of it being crowdfunded.
Yeah. Crowdfunding, I mean, nothing has changed game design or on an international level than crowdfunding. It just was absolutely huge, because, as you say, big companies use it to pre-order, and when we're talking about big companies, they often need the assurance of that pre-order. So they might be spending a couple of $100,000, but they still need to go, oh yeah, we had 10,000 backers. That, thank God, we got that locked in, or 5,000 backers or whatever. And
Yeah.
but for everyone else, it was like, oh, we can actually get money up front, which means we can hire artists and we can pay publishers and we can pay printers, and ship games out there. And they're really, particularly in places that aren't, again, the US or Europe. Australia had a very, very, very like minuscule board game publishing area, and then Kickstarter came along and everything changed because we could reach all over Australia and we could reach the rest of the world.
Well, yeah, it meant that we could exist in the US market, whereas before you would just have to physically be there.
Yeah, that's right. I think my first game we had about over half my backers were US.
Yeah.
Now it's about now it's about a third Australians, thanks to just being around a bit. A third Australians, a third Americans, and a third other.
Okay, that's not bad actually.
Yeah. And that's partly because of conventions and things like that coming back.
But
the American market is so important.
It's true, and I think about that a lot in a lot of my marketing efforts. But I wanted to bring us back to what the day-to-day kind of looks like. So what we've really just done so far is kind of given groundwork for what the industry and the atmosphere is kind of like. And I feel like a lot of content does kind of cover those areas. But I do like to go into it so people do, if they're coming in fresh, do have kind of an idea. Because a lot of people that might see this go, oh, I just have a game. I know nothing else. And all of us have a game. That's why we're here, right?
Yeah.
Some of us have many games. Some of us have piles of games and have to commit to one at a time. Some people are like me, where I'll just make stuff for the sake of making stuff to like sharpen my sword, so to say. And then randomly you'll make something and go, yeah, that's the one, you know? But I really wanted to get into the nuts and bolts of what the day-to-day stuff is like. Now, my understanding of what your day-to-day is, a lot more of your time is spent on the side stuff, but you're able to focus on the events and stuff that do happen, because I don't think I've missed you at an event very often.
I do try to go to most events, particularly like conventions and things like that, because that's where your customers are. And it's really good to work with people face to face.
Absolutely.
But for me, like the first thing I most of what I was doing today was sort of post sales work on the Kickstarter. So I had someone who didn't get their PDFs because the print and plays have gone out. So I had to respond to his email and go, tell me a bit more about your details. How do I send you the files? I also had to work with my distributor because we're trying to figure out when he's going to be able to send out a link to get the files if you can't get them through the email. But he's got COVID apparently, so
oh jeez, okay.
This morning I was like, oh, we're not having that meeting. He was supposed to talk to a marketing person that we're working with today as well to sort of set up some more marketing for post sales again. But now he's sick, so he's like, can you take it? And I'm like, no, I can't. So who knows when that meeting will happen. And that's just the sort of thing that, again, because like our distributor also is, you know, not full time. So he's got a life, he's got a job, he's got kids. So he only works a couple of days a week, and this week he's sick. So that can all add a lot of flow-on effects, I think, which is part of the whole thing. It's like, you know, you often, you know, why a game's delayed? It's because there's a flow-on effect. You know? It's like, oh, we promised you something this week, but I needed the art so that I could get it to this person, who could give it to this person, who could get it to the printer, and if anywhere along that system breaks, then everything screeches to a halt until it catches up.
Yeah, and it's always because like a human error existed, and not just like I misread a 6 as a 7. It was like my life was impacted by something that made me fail to deliver, as opposed to the average person's perception of when something goes wrong in the corporate thing, where it's like they made a choice, it was for money, they did it out of greed, and it's like if an indie developer doesn't show up on the day, it's because they are dead and they wish that they were still going. Like So it's just really crazy about the difference in sentiment about those things.
I think that's a good point because I think a lot of people, companies in general are opaque things. You know, they're not transparent. And as a result, it's very easy to think that Amazon and, you know, Cutlass Games are about the same size, you know, or whatever. Or, you know, Simon and me are the same size, but
Yeah.
there's an enormous amount of difference of scale.
Yeah. There's just the entire Cutlass Board Games employee base is in this frame.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I have basically one other helper. That's it. I do everything we outsource. And yeah, most companies realistically are 1 to 2 to 3 people. Even some of the companies that you might think of as big, you know, like Alley Cat Games is 2 people, right? They put out a lot of big games. Pandasaurus, I think, is 3 people.
Okay.
You know, these companies, then they're not large. And yeah, as you say, it's like nobody's delaying because they want to, you know, take your money and have a trip around the pool or something.
Yeah.
They broke their leg or
yeah.
you know, something like that. I remember a good friend of mine actually had one of his close friends murdered during his Kickstarter fulfillment campaign.
Jesus
And
Christ.
he was like, I'm going offline for a year because I have to deal with this,
That's
with the grief
crazy.
and then there was, you know, but because people are people, they were like, "Hey, where's our game? You've been gone a while." He's like,
Yeah.
"I don't want to worry about that for a while."
Yeah. That's crazy.
I mean, I get, yeah. Again, it's partly because people just think in our minds, it's like, well, it's a company. I push the button, it should come out the chute.
Vending
But
machine style.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's worth sitting down and going, who am I actually dealing with? Who are these people? And I try to be open about that a bit. Like, I don't want to, you know, show everyone every part of this how the sausage is made, but I like to go, you know, this is what Matt did today, and this is what I'm doing today, and this is
Yeah.
why this is a good thing to be like, um, let's be realistic about this. Let's
Yeah. Well,
show
I
people
guess
what's actually going on.
that's part of some of the point of this podcast, and some of the point of a lot of the video content I've been making recently
Yeah,
is to give an idea about what is going on with that. Because you kind of touched on that a little bit earlier, but there is designers that will just make a game and will pitch it, and it's basically like, here's the idea, and then you hand it off to someone and you're done. Like, you're just
yeah,
purely doing design. I don't personally like this, but I do have games in that basket for people to maybe pick up if they care about it. But otherwise, I prefer to publish all my own stuff, which means that I then have to go and do a lot of different things for that to happen.
yeah,
But also, like, showing off a lot of me just actually going and physically doing all of those things does kind of it's like a unique kind of accountability where people see you doing it. People
yeah,
know that it's not like through that door is an office space with 7 other people. It's like, no, next to me is the bed upon which I live, and I spend more time in my office, which is on this side of the room.
yeah,
And I think that not only do we like kind of want customers to kind of get to an understanding of that, where it's like, I'm literally just one man doing everything, sometimes 14 hours a day, and it's not enough. But then also aspiring creators that go, I have an idea, what do I do next? And you go, well, here's what I did, and it wasn't great. Or
yeah.
here's what you could be doing, and it might be easier, or whatever.
I think that is important to, yeah, to look at what the day to day is, because also I think a lot of people want to have made a game. They don't want to make games; they want to have made a game, and that's a
Yeah.
big difference. And by going, hey, look, this is what it actually is. If this was your job, or your side project, or your hustle, or whatever, or your passion project, you will be doing a lot of X, Y, Z. You might be making spreadsheets, cutting up pieces of paper.
I do a lot of arts and crafts.
Yeah. The next thing I'm probably going to be doing for a game is printing out a bunch of images, putting them on cards, possibly with sticker paper or something, because I want to make them square cards, so I don't want to sleeve them.
Okay.
So I'll just be cutting up like 100 different images and putting them on paper, and it'll just be a long day of craft.
I have some of them.
And yeah, sometimes that can be really tedious, especially when you're making cards that are very similar. I mean, it's not awful, but you know, like I need 15 red, 14 blue, 13 green.
Yeah.
Um,
I have a thing where I do so much arts and crafts where I get bruises and like rivets down the edge of my fingers that are like black. And I'm just like, yeah, maybe I should take a break at this point.
Yeah, scissor hands is definitely a thing.
Yeah. Because I do a lot of arts and crafts. Most of it is because I want to make something visual for a YouTube video. A lot of the times when I'm just making a prototype, it's done all in Photoshop and then printed. But even then, I'll have to like cut up the cards, which is like 9 a sheet. Just still a lot of scissor work.
Yeah. Have you got a guillotine?
I do. I do have a guillotine. I love it dearly. It's one of the best birthday presents I ever got. I was 20 something. Mum's like, what do you want for your birthday? I'm like, nothing. I don't need or do anything ever. But actually, this tool would be really helpful. It's like, why do you want me to buy your guillotine? I'm pretty sure like 10 years ago, I was buying you a PlayStation or something like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I bought mine about 5 years ago, and I was like,
it's really good.
I was like, it was a step, because it was like $40, and at that time that was a fair chunk. I was like, but this is investing in my talent. This is me going, I'm going to be a game designer. I'm buying myself a guillotine.
That's it.
Because I'm not a very good cutter. You know, I'm really bad at at cutting in a straight line, so I need a guillotine. And yeah, it's a good thing to get. Guillotine, printer, or Officeworks or something instead.
Printer's on my list. Instead of buying a printer, I've just become best friends with a guy in the suburb next to me who does print stuff.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Well, when my girlfriend told me she had a color laser printer, I was like, "Oh, hello. We're not breaking up."
You're like already ring shopping at that point.
That's right. That's right. Yep. I'll just move in and next to you and the printer. Yeah. So, which is a good example of something else you do. Is like, how can I do this as cheaply as possible? Right? I need to do X, Y, Z. Is there a way to do it cheaper? Is there someone I know who can help me?
That's like the time investment versus return thing. Like constantly, I'm thinking about this because it's like if I'm building a prototype of something, where's my return on that? Is this a prototype of something I'm really confident in? Do I think the idea is good? Am I going to maybe publish this in the future? And sometimes the answer is no, obviously. But then there's a caveat of if I can turn this into a YouTube video, which is building the brand, then that is technically me getting a return on my investment of time. And then sometimes the bigger project, like the Murders at Tilwood's Manor, which is my current one, is like the more time I'm pumping into this, the more guarantee the return will exist. So there's a lot of I don't like min-maxing your fucking minutes in a day, which is a bit unfortunate. But I wanted to quickly pop back for a second because you mentioned something I think is really, really important. And there's the two types of people. The person one who just wants to have made a game. And I met a guy like this recently who was like, here's my thing. And I'm like giving him career advice. And he's like, no, I just want to make this thing in particular. I'm like, okay, I understand now. And since then I've been like, okay, I know that all of the things that I think I have to teach another person is aimed at someone being a career designer. If you just want to be a hobby designer, I should limit all of my feedback to the product and no other thing. Because sometimes people will be like, here's my game. I'm like, okay, here's like game design advice, but also here's manufacturing advice. Here's things you should change because of marketing and etc. And then they're like, I'm not going to, I just, what do you mean? So it's hard.
Yeah. I think it's something that's really important. It's a bit like giving feedback on game design. It's like, what kind of feedback do you want? What kind of advice do you want? So yeah, actually, one thing I did today is I did some consulting work. So
okay, nice.
I get paid to tell people about the industry and about improving their game. And it was exactly that situation where a guy was originally going to Kickstarter. Now he has a new baby. He's like, don't want to, maybe not want to do all the work myself. And he had no idea how to pivot towards pitching to a publisher.
Okay, interesting.
And he's also the sort of thing where he does want to publish, but he probably only wants to publish one game at the moment. The game, he's got a baby, and that's his. I mean, like, as well as his physical baby, he's got
he's got a second baby.
His baby is this game that he's been working on for 5-10 years.
Yeah,
he really loves wrestling. He's trying to make a game about wrestling that captures some of the things that other wrestling games don't. And that's good, because the good thing, I mean, it's okay to just do that. I like to sort of diversify a bit in myself, but it's good to know what you want, right? And to be happy about, like, you don't want to put all your things like, I'll only be happy if this game gets published. But if your goal is, I want to make a really good game, I want to make this really good game about this vision and take it as far as I can, then that's a concrete goal, and you don't have to have advice on your careers, as you say. Whereas if you want to go, okay, I'd like to publish several games, or I'd like to set up a company, or whatever it is, you might not know, but figuring out sort of where you're going is part of the parcel, and that's something else you do day to day. Just like you kind of, as you said, you're doing triage on your time. You're also thinking about triage of your goals, like
yeah, exactly.
Well, this is getting me maybe towards a game that I can publish, or is it getting me towards a game that I can pitch to someone? Which gets me, which of those is taking me where? A YouTube channel is great to promote a Kickstarter, but it might be less useful to getting a game into the hands of a publisher or something.
Well, yeah, that's it. Like, if I'm, let's say I never self-publish again, and I pivot directly to pitching, and I could just be making really good YouTube videos that are game pitches, because a lot of publishers do like a pitch in a video rather than a sell sheet, especially if you have a really sexy looking prototype. And I've done I have some unlisted videos for, if you remember, we had a project where we were looking for something for a particular IP, and I built a spec for that. And I built a prototype, which was just printed cards, and I recorded it. This was like before I was doing more regular YouTube stuff. But I just kind of recorded it on my phone, and I explained how the game was supposed to work and pointed out with the different cards and stuff too. But I'm like, this could just be a series of things that you do, because not only does the publisher see the thing that is a sell sheet, but they could also see potential customer interest in it when it's just a concept. Which I think is also kind of interesting, and so I'm kind of doing a little bit of that, but a lot of it's more concept exploration than concept presentation. Just a bit different.
I guess the thing, the flip side to thinking about where everything leads is that everything tends to be useful. As much as you do want to put as much of your focus on profitable and useful things, you don't know necessarily what's going to work out. You might explore a game and it's popular. You might make a video and it's really popular. You might make videos that you forget about, but then later, a publisher will see and go, "Oh, I saw that game that you were playing the other day on that. It just popped up on my YouTube." And like I made a game 2 years ago called The Rent, which we originally did for a competition about autobiographical and games about social issues. We put it up on the Game Crafter, and we thought, that's it. It's there. If you want it, it's on the Game Crafter. But somebody printed out a copy. It ended up at a convention. They showed it to somebody else, and now I'm talking to a publisher. So
that's pretty cool.
I didn't even think of pitching that to anyone. And sometimes things are like that. So. And as you sort of said as well, designing things just to learn how to design, or to just stretch, to see where it goes, or just to make a fun game to play, that's also good.
Because sometimes the problems you have to solve in game design is the problem exists because you are missing a tool in your skill set, or there was a game that solves this problem already that you haven't played, and so I'm not only playing lots of games and looking at a lot of different things, but also exploring different mechanics, especially stuff that's not in my wheelhouse. Even though every game I seems to make is a fucking social deduction game in some way or another, and it's really frustrating. But finding other avenues to explore and all this kind of stuff might be interesting, and that might be me reinventing the social deduction genre later in using a different mechanic like tile laying or something ridiculous. And it might be an innovation that just hasn't happened yet. But without that groundwork to get to that place where I understand the second thing, having mastered the first thing, it can't be innovated in a new way by blending two things. I don't know, that's probably really vague and confusing, but it's a lot of how I build stuff.
Yeah, it's absolutely how I think creativity works, is that you need to be doing a bunch of different things. I was playing around the other day trying to make something like a much simpler version of Blood on the Clock Tower that only took about 20 minutes because it eats so much of the game day. But while I was doing that, my brain was like, remember that game you had like 2 years ago that was a sort of co-op game? And I'm like, oh yeah, I should go back to that. And your brain is often doing things. There's even a word for it where it's like your brain is doing things when you don't know it's doing things. And it's often works better when it's working on a project in front of it. Like, this is why some people say go for a walk to get ideas, because your brain's going, oh, look, I'm walking down the street, I'm crossing the road, I'm busy. And then there's a bit of your brain that's wandering off looking for creativity or inspiration or something in your memory. I find driving really good for that as well. When I'm driving, using all my...
Because you're on autopilot.
Yeah, using all that upper level brain energy, I'll suddenly get an idea for something.
I just go for a walk every day, and the thing that motivates me to go for a walk every day is sometimes I come back with Subway, and that makes it really easy.
Yeah.
But it's like 10-minute walk, so I get a nice 20 minutes of exercise, and while I'm doing that, I'm like, oh shit, hang on, I just remembered I have to send this person a message about this project or all this other stuff, and sometimes I'm making notes and stuff while I'm walking on my phone. And it's helpful. But I guess while I'm here mentioning this incredibly critical part of my day, I figured I might go through what I've been doing the last couple of days, because I've had some pretty crazy last couple of days, because we've just entered the final 2 weeks until launch for Murders at Seawoods Manor. So there's a lot of finalization stuff that I'm trying to do. But in the last couple of days, I've specifically done mostly Photoshop, mostly video editing, and then some game coding, because I have a video game digital companion that comes out with it.
Oh, nice.
And it's been out previously, and the plan is to release an update to it that adds more content at the same time. So I have the Steam marketing, and then in the game menu is a link to the Kickstarter for the board game. And it's like, if you like this digital game, buy the board game, which is better, because it's more my skill set than the video game. And then like all that kind of stuff tying together. So I'm making like content for both things in sort of a way. But I did all the video content. I made my own trailer for the Kickstarter. And I made a new trailer for the Steam game as well, because the old one had placeholder assets in it, which wasn't great. I've done tons of Photoshop stuff. Like I've done all the graphic design work for the Kickstarter page itself. I've been recording videos of me doing that as well. And the beautiful thing about that is like, I can't end the task early. It's like, I've set out to do this thing. It's going to be in this YouTube video. I just cannot stop halfway through and quit. I'd have to finish the task. Which is like really good.
Way to motivate yourself.
I'm holding myself accountable by making sure the task gets done. Which is kind of crazy, but also burns me out really hard. Like, I'll finish a thing and I'll be like, okay, I just genuinely can't do anything but stare at like doom scroll Facebook or something for a little while, which is also not great, but I've been very productive, fortunately.
I mean, it's sort of an accountability as well, because there's an audience effectively, and sometimes I'll do that when I want to push through an idea. I will call someone or get on social media or get on a streaming and go, here's what I've got. Because if I'm demonstrating or talking it and explaining it, A, someone might say something, but B, it'll also trigger something in my brain.
Yeah,
and it'll
exactly.
also force me to put it out there.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to go to events as well, because it makes me bring something. If I'm not selling something, I'll be like, time to finish a prototype. Next week is, we have playtesting meeting Tuesday of every month, and that's usually a nice kick up the bum to finish a prototype.
Bring something. I've also been just hassling people because we've had a few people come along and they're like, "Yeah, I kind of have something." And I'm like, "Where is it? I want to see it." And they're like, and then I've been like, "Okay, next month I want to see your thing." And some people have actually started doing that, and it's been really cool to like motivate them to get to either our play state or to like get to a point where they are bringing it and showing us because I want to see what they're working on. You know?
Yeah. And it's very frightening at first, but it's often, I think, of people really, as soon as they get over that first 5-10 minutes, they start to get a sense of, oh, it's working. Ooh, shit.
Seeing it in action. Also, seeing someone that like really knows game design playing your thing and interacting and picking up the game quickly and asking like pointing questions and stuff like that. I think like when I first started out, it was like really satisfying as well.
Yeah, it's great to have someone just go, oh yeah, I can see what you're doing here, and I recognize this, and this seems to be, this is working, and and getting really sharp feedback can be just inspiring and makes you feel like you're not just making it all up and
it gives you a taste of what career design is beyond hobby design, because until you've interacted with other designers with your product and you're just playtesting with friends and family, it can't feel that serious.
Certainly, that's part of it. It's a sort of recognition of you're more than just painting on the weekend or something. This is something that you could do more seriously. And obviously, there's no judgment about how seriously you take something, but it's that sense of, oh, I'm around other people who do this as a living, and they are recognizing me as an equal. And I think that's something I always like to do. Yeah, as you say, encourage people. So if I'm at DevCon or something like that, and there's someone sitting alone, I'll be sitting down going, "Show me your game."
Yeah, I try and do that a lot as well.
Yeah, because it's like you get to once you know how much that can help, and someone going, "Yeah, I like this, I like that." It's a great thing to pass on to somebody else, especially if it's their first time, or as you say, they're a bit shy, whatever it is. Yeah, I'm always impressed by people like that who are just who have that courage to come down, because I know how hard it is.
I am anxious all the time about stuff, and I'm still like trying to throw myself out there and interface with people, and so experiencing it, I just assume that other people are also experiencing it and like try and do things that would help me, but for them. If that makes sense.
That's right. That's I guess it comes back to that we were saying about wearing hats, is that the more you're in the industry, the more you have empathy for people in all sorts of different positions.
Well, and networking is a hat.
Yeah. And empathy makes you better at networking, because you can understand what other people might need from you.
Empathy makes you a better storyteller, and being a good storyteller makes you a good game designer.
That's right. Yep. And then and all of this just feeds back into itself. So if you're having trouble, but if what was I going to say? Yeah, doing all sorts of different things is important, and looking at things from all sorts of different views. And you can do that a little bit, even if you're not a publisher. You can go, what would I think if I was a publisher? What would I think about this game as a marketer, or
even as a customer? I think as a designer, you need to think, what is the end use of this thing? If someone opened the box and drinks the components like soup, what is that result going to be like? Because you have to be able to weather all that kind of discourse, and you have to be able to create a product that is that kind of not like physically durable, but like the relationship between the player and the rule book is durable and stuff like that. Which is a lot.
Christopher Nolan is someone that the filmmaker that I know a fair bit about, and he made his first film by renting cameras, working on the weekends, and he was doing everything except basically the acting. He wrote the script, he did the shooting, he did the lighting, he helped find sets, he did the editing. And that means when he goes to work on $100 million film where he only does the directing, he knows a little bit about what everyone else does.
Yeah.
Which means when he goes to talk to his guys in editing, he's like, I respect you. I know what you've done.
Yeah.
So if you have made a budget, made a marketing plan, talk to printers, talk to warehouse people, right? You get a sense of what their job is,
Mm.
and how that all works. I was out at the warehouse a couple of weeks ago shipping stuff out and
Oh yeah.
talking. Basically, my distributor in Brisbane is now holding my games, which means I don't have the
Nice.
expense of keeping a storage locker anymore.
Mm.
So that was speaking of earlier, like how to escape expense. I was like,
Mm.
can you keep it? And they're like, yeah, we won't charge you for that. And I'm like, excellent.
It's a deal.
Yeah. From something
Yeah.
to nothing, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's just a good example of day-to-day stuff. I have 350 copies of Relics left, and they take up a fair amount of space. And if you don't have space in your, like, do you have a garage is a good question, right? If you want to be a game publisher.
I have a garage, but it has no games in it.
Right.
So maybe I'm doing something wrong. Maybe I just haven't made enough stock or something. But in my wardrobe behind me, there is some copies of Castles of Calera, but all the copies of Spaceship Readout are not stored here. They're in Melbourne. So I guess the more I do stuff like that, then I don't have to keep it on site.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I've just sorted out as well. To store it off with a distributor or somebody else, so that I don't have that cost. And originally, I was actually using a friend's. So again, I found a way. I was like, can I store this in your stuff?
Networking.
It's like, yeah.
I know a guy. What is it? Yeah. There's a the score card character about this.
Yeah,
contacts. He knows it. He knows a guy.
Yeah.
A lot of game design is contacts. Like randomly, I'll go, I'm having a problem with this thing, and you reach out, and then someone will go, oh, I can fix that, or I know a guy, and then you'll meet someone, or I'm trying to get an in with this particular event or something like that, and then someone will have a point of contact for you. And I think networking is usually, to me, more valuable than directly customer interfacing, like 99% of the time, because some of those interactions are just very, very valuable. Or you've provided a great amount of value to somebody else, and then in that helps everyone get better.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. You know this person better now, and you've learned a bit, and you know where to go. You know where to send other people, which can also be good. I mean, that's one of the things about networking is just how can person X help me? It's like, okay, I know now person X can help me with this. When everyone else asks me, I send them to that person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so you have provided this new person with a source. Of service. So yeah. So the guy who did my Kickstarter video for the score, in which we launched in March, I just saw a job going for someone who needs it. I sent it straight to him saying, you did a great video for me, go for this job. And yeah, you build up a Rolodex in your mind of all these people who can, and then you don't just grab them for yourself, you send them to people who need things, or send people to them.
Do you keep a physical list of some of these types of things?
I used to. I sort of lapsed on it. A lot of the time, I just and I do admit I sometimes forget. So like I'll be going, and I'll ask other people. So I'll go to someone and go,
do you remember this? Yeah.
Yeah, when I sent that guy to you, who the hell was it?
Yeah.
Like the guy who did the tabletop simulator conversion for the score. Again, it was a friend of a friend. I couldn't remember who did it, so I went to the friend. I said, "Who was it?
Yeah.
Who you recommended to me?" He was like, "I remember it was Jack."
Yeah.
And I'm like, right. Now I remember.
I need to get back in touch.
Yeah, if you're bad with memory, have a spreadsheet and go. I talked to Bob. Bob does this.
Because I have a Google Doc just for game manufacturers, because game manufacturers do this thing, and it gives me these shits where they seem to not understand the product cycle. But in the product cycle, I have the manufacturer, I get samples of the manufacturer, I get reviews made, and then I go to Kickstarter. When I announce that I'm going to Kickstarter, every manufacturer on the planet goes, "You're going to Kickstarter, you need a manufacturer." I'm like, I obviously have one.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but like maybe I'll use you for another project, or maybe I'll look into what's going on another time. And then that other time, I'm not reminded about it unless if I'm launching a Kickstarter when I have a manufacturer already. So I've started just building out a Google Doc. And sometimes people will ask me and they go, do you know any manufacturers? I'm like, fucking, they message me every day. Of course I know plenty of manufacturers. But do I know someone that's a good fit? Or usually I would just recommend whoever I'm using at the time because then I know that they're good or whatever. And so I think a lot of that stuff, like maybe I should start doing that for more specific skills to make my networking more efficient. Or if someone comes to me and they're like, I'm having X problem, I'm like, well, I have someone who deals in X's specifically, which could be more helpful. But I think that's more as being a good community member rather than specifically a good networker, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an overlap between those skills, really. Yeah, especially online where you can walk into a room, it's an online room, and go, hello, everyone, I need X.
Yeah, and it's seen by like 400 people or something.
Yeah, the internet is really good for that. Yeah, so there are overlapping skills with similar sorts of things. But yeah, and keeping some sort of journal or list or spreadsheet of who's good for what, that's a good idea. But it's also good to check in with people as well, because you don't always know what people can and can't do.
True.
And sometimes,
or are like really good at, because sometimes people are really good at stuff and you just maybe assume that they outsourced for that skill. Like
that's right. And that's why we're talking about events and stuff. It's really good to meet people in person and to go through everything, and all that stuff about there's this new trend in business about Scrum and Agile, and all of that. One of the key things of that is at the start and the end of every week, everyone gets together and talks about what they're doing for express reason of they might be stuck with a problem that somebody else can fix.
Yeah.
And unless you keep coming back and going, this is where we are, you don't have that moment of, oh, I can fix that. So I've always been trying to encourage people to meet up. We had an event in Sydney at the Powerhouse, and there was a brief sort of designer catch up at the end of it, which was good.
Oh, okay. I missed that. I was there for the pre-roll, not the post.
Right. Yeah. So, I was sort of running around at the end, going, "Oh, do you guys know?" Too late, but yeah. I try to do a little bit of that, just So if you have we just went to Pancakes and had coffee. But
bad.
If you're around and you have an extra hour at one of the events or something, show up a bit earlier or leave a bit later. And you'll probably be able to pick people's brains.
Often you could just like corner someone and be like, "Hey, can you help me with this?" Or especially at an event, because pretty much most of the time, I'm pretty sure most other people that do game dev as like a great percentage of their time are enthusiastic for other people to do the same thing. I've met lots of people that are like, "Hey, I want to be making a thing." I'm like, "Okay, well, if you're ready, I will literally tell you everything that I know to get to this point, happily." But actually, it's kind of funny. I was just thinking about it before. This podcast is literally me going, "I need a guy because I want to be doing more podcast content," and you're like, "I know a guy. He's me." And here we are doing day-to-day dev.
And it's good. Like, I actually did a YouTube series a few years ago, but it didn't really catch on.
Was that Lancing with Myself?
That's the one.
I watched a lot. I actually really like that series.
Yeah, I did weekly ones, but it didn't really take off. We only had like about 80 subscribers or something. You've got a lot more subscribers than that, so you've got what I need. And so
slowly, I get about one every day. So if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, you're not the one, and you could be.
Yeah, and look, what people don't often understand is, of course, it's supposed to be something that's helpful for you to help you find things, but it's really helpful for the algorithm. If you like this, it's more likely to be shown to your friends.
True. And also the other way around. Like, if you're going onto YouTube to try and learn about something, and you encounter a video or you search for something and this is a video that pops up and it wasn't quite it, the algorithm will go, oh, you're interested in this thing, and start to deliver more stuff. And the harder you engage with each of those pieces of content, the harder the algorithm will recommend things to you. That's so right. if I built a 20 video playlist of a tutorial of exactly how to do something that you're trying to do, and you watched one of the videos and then went away and worked on it for a bit, and then was like, oh, damn, what was that thing again? Then YouTube might deliver it to you again. But it's more likely to deliver it to you if you subscribe, if you like, if you click the bell for notifications, and if you comment on stuff, which I do a lot just for like myself, usually for other creators that are just starting out and I want to see things as they grow, or people that I know in the space already and are doing YouTube stuff, because it's like, that's what I want to see instead of whatever Mr. Beast is doing. That's going to show up anyway. I don't need to encourage the algorithm for that. Like...
That's right. That's right. You're going to get all this garbage anyway. So yeah, and I guess that's a kind of networking. Is you see someone doing something you like, put a comment down, because it really helps them and it helps you. And it marks those things, that the skills that you need. It's an online version of what we've been talking. And yeah, so I try to, especially to say new creators, early creators, I'm always liking and sharing and using their services as well, right? You know, that's a great place to get reviews, for example, for your Kickstarter. Speaking of getting things cheap or for free,
I do like to get a one big one, one medium one, and a bunch of small ones is usually my preference. That's and usually these are picked because they're people I knew already or have interacted with in the past. Which is, I don't know, I think reviews is like a really, really hard thing to organize and manage. But especially because we're here, right? If we were in any other country, there's probably 17 idiots around you that you've met personally. Here, I don't know any Australian reviewers. I don't know any Sydney-based reviewers. I don't know anyone that makes YouTube content in Australia about board games, with the exception of Meeple University, which is based in Melbourne. And they're already, like, they do all their own other stuff as well. Like, they're part of Guff and all that stuff as well now. So it's like, what am I have to ship stuff out. When I did my shipping, I'm at the post office a lot now, and it's kind of irritating because I just am not organized enough to do it in one trip. I did it in 4 trips. And I shipped to Sweden, Canada, and 2 different parts of the US, I'm pretty sure. And it's just like, the first time I go in there, they're like, oh no, you have to scan a QR code to do your customs thing and all this other kind. I'm like, well, this is news to me, you know. Go and do it, fill out all these forms that are digital, and then show them a reference code, and then like wrap the box, whatever they are supposed to be. I go the second time, and they're like, oh, you have to go to the thing. I'm like, here's my reference number. I've done it. I'm ready. Like, all this other weird stuff that's, you know, a skill I didn't think I would need to have, but sorting it all out, getting it all done, learning how to do it all.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
And then look, if you end up deciding that you, like you said, you can learn things and then do it for free, or you might go, look, that was just exhausting, and I do want to pay someone for that, you know.
Yeah.
My first Kickstarter, we did all our fulfillment ourselves,
which is insane, honestly.
It took forever.
Yeah.
And then we were like, you know what? It's worth whatever it is, 10% or something, to get someone else to do it for us.
Yeah. That's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. So for this campaign, it's the first time I won't be doing fulfillment directly from China. It'll be fulfillment from Australia, which is a different beast and is interesting, but it means that the stock coming to us will be the entirety of the stock. None will be stored in China.
Right.
To the store that is our partner and will be primarily selling it, as well as fulfilling the campaign. So it means that Anzam customers are going to get the cheapest shipping you will ever see out of a board game Kickstarter, because no one else does that. No one else has their primary retail presence in Australia. But it does mean that it's really expensive for America.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a weird juggling problem, and I'm sure we'll figure out something to make it not horrible. But it's interesting how like this relationship that I have with the Quest suppliers has been like super beneficial because they handle stuff specifically that I hate, and I'm happy to do like literally everything to the Kickstarter funds, and I go, all right, you homies can handle that. All of the like the product arrives, fulfilling the product, or the post sales, like they've helped me get rid of Castles of Calera, Spaceship Readout copies, and now hopefully a third game. So it's
Nice.
you know, and this all just literally came off a random Facebook message where I was like, hey, my Kickstarter for Spaceship Readout didn't fund. Do you want to just go halves in a print run? We'll make 500 and you can sell them. And then I'm like fully expecting it. I know that is ridiculous, but they're actually like, tell me more. And I was like, oh shit, okay. So yeah, sometimes reaching out can be just really good. Sometimes knowing someone that knew that they were looking for a thing or were doing something already means that the anxiety of reaching out is non-existent. And a lot of these things I think are worth talking to people, and interfacing with your local designers and networking and stuff is really valuable.
Yeah. Alrighty. Well, we might do this next week again if people like it. If you do, if you want to keep hearing about what it's like to do the day-to-day work of game design and game development, then let us know in the comments and subscribe and all those things we listed.
Yeah, I want to hear questions. I want to like literally devote an entire episode to answering like an obscure question about what it is, because I feel like what we are actually doing, like when you say game designer, you don't imagine me in Photoshop for 15 hours. You imagine me pulling apart a copy of Monopoly and going, how do I fix this? And I think that I want to hear maybe what your misconceptions about the job are. What do you think I should have been doing all this time? Or what are you curious to know that I can and can't do in this? Like, what kind of skills do I actually have? Or what do I actually also, whatever, I want to hear about what you guys are curious about, because I want to help. I want to help you do what I'm doing if you want to.
Yeah. And what's a misconception about your job? That's another thing. What do you people think you do all day? And then it turns out, no, I don't. Let us know in the comments, as always.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is us. I'll be, uploading this soon. And then hopefully, if you're watching this on YouTube, it will be in its own playlist and you'll be able to find more episodes in the future as we record them, probably weekly, if we're good at scheduling. But yeah, let's hope that we see you in the next one.
See ya.